Welcome back to Center Stage at World Water Week. My name is Andreas Karlsson, and this is the first in a series of so-called wrap-ups, where we will talk to friends and colleagues about their take on the week and what's happening here. With me on stage, I have Martina Klimes and I have John Lane. And if I were to introduce both of you properly, we would be here all evening. I think for the purpose of this conversation, we'll say that you are both part of the Scientific Program Committee, SPC. We'll get to what that is in a minute. John, you're the chair. Since when?
A year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago. And Martina, aside from being part of the SPC, you're also an advisor at SIWI, one of the primary focuses being water and peace. Should we start with the SPC then? What sort of illustrious gathering is this?
The SPC is a committee that is part of SIWI, but slightly separate from the mainstream management of SIWI. It comprises about 18 water experts from all around the world. And our main function is to debate and propose the theme for each year's World Water Week. And we're going to talk about that a bit more in a moment. And also our second major function is to manage the SIWI seminars, which we're also going to discuss with you.
Absolutely. Lots of things to cover. Speaking of the theme, of course, you have all heard it by now. It's seeing the unseen, the value of water. And there's really two components to that. There's the valuing part and there's the unseen part. I know, John, that you're an advocate for the valuing part, really, and we must not forget about that. Can you please take us through the thinking behind that part of the theme?
Sure, thanks. Our strategic vision for World Water Week in terms of its content is that the meeting will evolve from being a meeting of water people to being a meeting about water for all people. And that's precisely why we chose the theme of valuing water, because water it is given different sorts of values by people in all kinds of different walks of life, whether they may be in agriculture, in health, in energy, quite apart from the values that are given to it within the world of water. And so what we're trying to tease out in all the discussions is that full range of values that water has. Some are monetizable values, financial values, others might be social or cultural values. But together, the underlying point is that water can contribute towards achieving societal aims. For example, social development, economic development, reduction of greenhouse gases, mitigation of climate change.
And why do you think that we struggle to value water properly?
It's extremely complicated. Economists will approach it from one particular angle, but because water has all those almost sort of intrinsic values, for example, in the religious sphere, or in terms of people's sense of self, sense of belonging to a particular geographical area, it makes it a much more complicated issue rather than something that you can easily analyze numerically. So the key to it, and this is something that World Water Week is well suited for, is to have discussions among people of many different backgrounds about how they value water.
Before I pass on to Martina, I'll just say to the crew that we don't have a watch on the stage here, so if someone can give me a heads up when we have about a minute to go. Martina, the unseen part and the unseen water can be interpreted in many ways, of course. What does unseen water mean to you?
Thank you. I think for many people, they would imagine mainly groundwater. And we do have here many sessions on transboundary aquifers. But unseen water is, for example, also virtual water. It's the amount of water we need to produce water-instant products like watermelons, avocados. And then we have to think about importing this food and the whole food chain. And then that is also part of water processes. It's not only water that we see that comes from the tap, as we heard today during the opening ceremony. It's also water is in our clothes, water is in our food, water is in different industries. So that is all part of this something what we can call unseen water. Not the water we can only see with our eyes, but that is in other products.
Yes. John, unseen water, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, as Martina has said, it's complicated. It's all those aspects of water that we have previously neglected. For sure, groundwater is a really big element of that, and I'm very excited that during this week there are going to be lots of sessions that look at groundwater and also that look at all of those other aspects of unseen water as well.
And Martina, you mentioned virtual water, and that is really a tricky concept. How do you think that we can better understand that and appreciate that aspect of water?
I think it's really to think about how much water we need to produce food, and then you think about the food imports. So, for example, if one country imports 1/3 of all their food, that also means that they are importing water. And then you can think of all the geopolitical implications of that. So it's much more complex and it relates to more sectors. And actually, one thing I would like to say about SPC, it's not only water experts. We are lawyers, economists, we are people from the field, we are professors, scientists. So I think that term is a little bit misleading when you talk about a scientific committee, that it looks like a group of scientists who do their science. Not at all. It's really people from all walks of life talking about water.
And you touched on it, and we are starting to reach beyond the water community with these issues. And you mentioned also earlier that it should really be a conference about water for people. How can we reach even further than that? How can we expand the horizons for the water community?
I think World Water Week has a very important role to play because CWE provides a kind of neutral platform where other organizations can come to host sessions. And that's quite unusual. You know, in most conferences you go to, the whole program has been centrally controlled and planned and very clearly architected by the host. Here, that's not the case. So our committee have the job of constructing an intellectual framework, if you like, but what brings it to life is all the different organizations that host sessions. And what I've seen, because I've been attending World Water Week for many years, is that now the number of sessions that are hosted by organizations that come from a broader range of backgrounds that are not kind of obvious water organizations is increasing, and that is very exciting to me. It's extremely stimulating to meet those new people and to welcome them as part of our debates.
That is really what the numbers for this conference already seems to suggest, actually. Yeah. You mentioned the seminars, and they are, of course, a very interesting part of this program. Martina, can you give us some examples? What will be covered in the seminars?
One of the seminars that we are looking to is the role of water as a driver for peace and cooperation. And this is exactly looking at how water works with other sectors. How, for example, too much water, too little water, or too dirty water can fuel conflicts, or it can be used as a source of opportunity for cooperation and new dialogues. I would also say that many of the sessions are online, and all of you can go back and really find it on the platform and see what already happened last week. Then I would, of course, hope to see you all on Tuesday. We have 2 sessions, one on transboundary aquifers and then one on different scales, because there we look what happens on the local scales, how it relates to national scale and the regional scales. We will have the Iraqi Minister of Water Resources, Mahdi Rashid, who will join us and tell us about the situation in Iraq, when water is actually very little about the technical water, it's a lot about politics. So we will be connecting this in our sessions.
Anything else you're looking forward to with the program?
Of course, I'm looking to other sessions from my colleagues from SPC. There is a very interesting sessions on food security. But other than that, I'm also very much looking to mingle and dance on Thursday evening. I also do hope to see you all on the dance floor, and those of you joining us online, I do hope to see you here in Stockholm next year.
Very good. And we should perhaps also mention, you said that it is possible to go back and watch sessions and seminars afterwards, and I believe the platform will stay open for 60 days after the conference to be able to do that. The conference has already had a few days online. Any highlights, Martina, so far?
I think a big highlight is really how do we put words in action? Because we do know that these are the challenges, we can identify them, but the problem is how we do this. How can we move forward? How can we actually do something that can lead to meaningful change? And the other very interesting thing that happened online is a really call by senior experts to do more mentoring, to work with youth. And I think you have the numbers. The conference is really well attended by young professionals. Is that true?
And John, what have your highlights been?
I agree completely. What I was really thrilled to see in the online sessions last week, and I'm already seeing them here in the hybrid sessions as well, is people are much more concerned about presenting solutions rather than simply repeating the problems. There has been a tendency previously that, and it's particularly with some of the older people with grey beards who've been around a long time, can stand up and just talk forever about this is a problem and that's a problem and this is difficult and we have to do that, but we don't know how to. And what is so exciting here last week and this week is seeing younger, more dynamic people who are not prepared to tolerate that sort of attitude, but who want to come forward and say, there are solutions to all of these problems. And I've been observing that both in the online sessions and indeed now. It's something that within our own CWE seminars we encourage very much. And it's great to see that happening in the other sessions, because that's the future of our sector and it's the future of our debates, that we really need to all do the most that we possibly can to overcome the problems and not to become depressed or bogged down in how we perceive them.
Sounds a bit like you feel guilty about having just focused on the challenges and the problems rather than talking about solutions.
That's right. And I think year by year, World Water Week gets better at that. But it's something that we all, as session organizers and as participants, have to work really hard, and this includes people who are participating online from all around the world. Please contribute your perspectives and in particular your ideas for overcoming problems, for solving problems, for moving forward, for being optimistic about the future, for looking at ways to work together to make the world a better place through water.
Martina, do you feel optimistic, positive for the future?
I feel quite optimistic, also because we are not afraid of the difficult questions. For example, we will have the high level on climate and peace, and there we do hope that we will really hear, for example, positions from leading countries in the global arena on these very difficult issues, and they are not afraid to discuss it, and they are not afraid to move forward the discussion. So that really does give me some hope, and of course the great engagement of young professionals.
Excellent. And I'll keep talking here until I know when we are supposed to finish. John, going back to what we spoke about earlier about the SPC's role in the seminars, etc. Is that defining World Water Week as you see it?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
The seminars, is that the sort of the backbone, the core of the World Water Week?
Thanks very much. Yes, I mentioned a moment ago that one of the wonderful features of World Water Week is that sessions can be hosted by lots of organizations. To give a little bit of a sense of intellectual structure to that, the CWE seminars form what could be, you could call it a backbone through the week. So there are 8 of those seminars, including the seminar that Martina was talking about. And if you only attended those 8 seminars, you would be able to grasp the full range of topics on valuing water. Of course, I'm encouraging people to attend lots of other sessions as well, but the CWE seminar series are designed by us to give a fairly comprehensive coverage of the major topics relating to valuing water.
There's also one other thing happening here, which I know that you, Martina, are involved in, and that is the big globe that you can see standing outside of Norra Latin if you are here on site in Stockholm. Can you please say something about that? What is that big globe?
It's actually art installation. It's called Terra Luna. It's a model of the globe that came to us from the town of Brno in the Czech Republic, and it was brought by the Embassy of the Czech Republic in Stockholm to really mark their presidency of the EU Council, but to also really show us and help us to see perspective and help us to see how much water we actually have around the globe. And I can say that today there is the smaller model, but tomorrow the bigger model should be inflated because of the wind. So I really encourage everyone to go and see it.
Why does it hold a special place in your heart?
I was already born in the Czech Republic, so it's very special to really see my fellow countrymen to come and to really show us what the country has to offer. And it's a very nice marriage between my two countries, Sweden and the Czech Republic, because they also do have the EU presidency one after another. So it's very nice. And we've just a few moments ago, we had a special meeting for all the EU ambassadors and ambassadors of the candidate countries discussing issues related to climate diplomacy. So, and really to hearing all this interest in these issues, it does give some hope that there is a real sincere will to find solutions to these very difficult questions.
We mentioned the theme for this year's World Water Week. There will come another World Water Week eventually. We're not saying anything about the theme for that, but I suspect that the process is going on. Can you please say something about that, John? Where are we?
Yes, indeed. We usually plan up to 2 years ahead, Andreas, on thinking about the theme. So as you say, we're very well advanced in our thinking for next year. Of course, everybody is very well aware that between now and our next Water Week, the UN Conference on Water will take place. That's the first one since 1977. So you can be sure that just as the outputs from this World Water Week will be feeding into that UN conference, so coming out from the UN conference, the resolutions from the conference are influencing the choices we're making right now about our themes for next year and indeed the year beyond.
I did see a discrete signal from the side here. I suspect that that's a signal that we are supposed to wrap up. As I said, I didn't see a clock here, so my apologies if we are over time. Thank you, Martina Klimes. Thank you, John Lane, for joining us. And do join us same time tomorrow when we will have new guests on stage to do a wrap-up. Thank you.